Good morning. Happy holidays and happy new year to come. My name is Andrea, and you are with Deanna Batdorf and a special guest today for Ask DeAnna Anything. If you have never watched this before, if you're just joining us for the first time, this is a place where you can ask your questions live. And Deanna, who is an amazing Ayurvedic practitioner, lymphatic specialist, small business owner, will answer your questions. And today's a really amazing day because we have with us Joanna Sapir, who is a business coach and a leader in helping wellness practitioners step into their businesses and find more fulfillment and purpose in their work. She serves clients who are interacting with the public on the daily basis. She's been a teacher and a mentor for more than 20 years. She's worked in a classroom, she's worked in the gym and wellness practices. And one really neat thing about her is that she's a national champion in Olympic style weightlifting, which blows my mind. She's a native to San Francisco, and now she's in Sonoma County, but she's here with us today to talk more about her practice and to talk to you if you are a small business owner or a wellness practitioner, or you're finding yourself in need of some way to kind of wrangle that planning aspect of the new year, and you're wanting to kind of dial things in. So hi, you two. How are you both doing?
Good. Good morning.
Doing really great. Really nice to have you with us, Joanna. And I did not know that about you. Woo, that's like powerhouse. Imagine taking the Olympics into a business realm. Just what it is to discipline and really be strategic and planning and going towards a goal. Like, wow.
Yeah, actually, I totally think to be clear, the sport is called Olympic style weightlifting. So I have not been in the Olympics, just to be clear, but it is an Olympic sport. And for sure, I think any kind of sport, but especially that one, the discipline required is totally applies to so many parts of business. And I have had, I will say, a former Olympian as a client, and that impresses the heck out of me because of, yes, the level of their dedication and training to their sport. It's amazing.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it's really nice to have you. And I wanted to have you on specifically. I know we were, planning and being strategic ourselves on just like, how can we work together, continued, since we've done work in the past at the DeAnna Center, and it was really, fruitful and felt good. So I just thought it'd be nice to kind of have you on for New Year's solutions and just what is it to plan a year ahead. And even that right there scares a lot of people, even though I plan 3 and 5 years ahead. And, I have to do my schedule this year. I was a little late in the game, but I think they got it October, November, but usually I'm in like a July. Pandemic shifted things a little bit. But, usually in July, I already have turned in my whole year's schedule for the next year. And some people are like, man, Deanna, you're locked in. How does your Aquarian handle it? And I always say, well, I am a Virgo rising. But even if you are Aquarian like myself, you can learn to be more disciplined in a creative way. So I just want to crack that egg open right now. And a whole first New Year's solution would be to change, maybe everybody take out of their brain and out of their senses, like put down those ideas that you're going to be so locked in, you're going to be uncomfortable by strategic planning. Because strategy and strategic planning, there is nothing better than meeting a goal and knowing what follow through feels like. And I find that a lot of people just don't even try follow through very much because they feel like they're going to be, again, locked into something and it's going to make them uncomfortable, but they have no idea. And I ask clients this all the time. I'm like, have you ever plotted something out for 6 months? I'll even say 3 months for a baby step. Have you even planned 3 months out and then achieved the goal and know how good it feels? So I just want everyone to kind of put down these old ideas and very conservative ideas on what it is to be strategic and take ownership of your goals and really organize in a way that is creative and playful and fun. I have fun with my schedule. I play with my schedule. I play with my business, and I make sure it's creative enough so that I don't get bored. Otherwise, I would put it down just like anybody else. So I just think it's a really good thing to kind of really prepare people for any of the knowledge you might bring, to the screen today. Just take away the old paradigms and maybe give a look at, follow through feels really, really good.
I love this. I love this perspective of how playful this can be and how it's yours. Like the thing is you can make a schedule. Let's just say that you can make a schedule for yourself, but it's yours. Like you can change it too. Mm-hmm. Nobody is, when you own your own business anyway, nobody is above you saying it has to be this way and you have to show up this way and this way and this way. It's all yours. So giving yourself structure is super empowering. And not only that good feeling you're talking about once you accomplish a goal, but what I hear from practitioners especially is kind of waking up each day. And like when you have a day with client sessions, well, that's what your day is. You know what it is, right? But what about when there's breaks between sessions or somebody cancels or it's a day without sessions, you're not booked? People say, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And they kind of go scrambling going, oh, I'm supposed to do some kind of marketing. So should I write a blog post? Am I supposed to post on social media? And don't know what they're doing. And that's what kind of mapping out what your goals are and how you're going to get to your goals gives you. It gives you focus on, this is what I'm working on right now. Here's what I can do to get to my goals. Right. So instead of kind of going, what am I supposed to be doing and feeling lost, it's very clear what you should be doing.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Ask DeAnna Anything. It's every other Thursday. If you figure out which Thursday it is, it's every other Thursday from there. So, it keeps a certain continuity, which builds safety for your clientele also. Like they know this thing is going to be there. They know when it is, and they don't have to try to, hunt it down. So that schedule has a lot of different values when you like, okay, I blog on Wednesday, and I go live on Friday. Those things really add up to somebody being able to follow you and to have security that you have a schedule. Because that's another thing in professionalism is if I'm like, oh yeah, I book you whenever I want. I tell my students this all the time. They're like, I booked a 7:00 tonight. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm like, a 7 p.m. massage? Like, you got to have a schedule so people know. Otherwise, you're just going to be all over the place and then you don't feel like you have a life because you just booked here, booked there, booked here, booked there. And you don't actually end up getting a life. So if I say to someone, oh, my last appointment is at 3, because I do long stretches. So it's like 3, I'm still not going to be done till 5 or 6. That's it. And so I think the schedule has many different values that people don't maybe consider. We just put it in, again, our brain says schedule, and then we feel locked in. And we don't have that moment to say, but I'm making this really easy for others. And that's going to be fruitful.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you don't determine your schedule, other people will. And that's far less freedom than you're imagining. Right. And so, yes. So flipping that question to a client, when are you available? And actually knowing, here are the slots I have available, this and this, which would work best for you, I think what a great thing to do at the beginning of the year is decide on, so this is not even the year, but just decide on what does my weekly schedule look like? What do I want it to look like? Right. And so I kind of advise people really think about waking up each day. And first of all, how many days a week do you work? in your business or on your business, right? So you don't have to work. You know, a lot of people come out of working for companies or working for somebody else and think of this 40-hour work week. You totally don't have to have that. How many hours do you want to be working on your business? I work 4 days a week and about 20 hours a week on my business, right? And so mapping that out. When do I want to be working on my business? When do I want my time for exercise and health and self-care, right? When do I have times that are specifically for my kids and my family? When do I have times that are specifically for, you know, well, I guess that's self-care, but I was going to say just my meditation and being in connection with myself, all those pieces, actually deciding for yourself, when do I want that to be? And you get to choose. Right? You get to choose. And so client facing days might only be 2 days in the whole week. And it's these particular hours. And that's it. Those are the client days, right? This other day, I'm working on my business, but not seeing clients. And I'm doing some financial planning and I'm reviewing my marketing and I'm planning my next steps and so on, right? And that all has to be built in, usually ahead of time. Otherwise, I was just talking to a close friend of mine who's a therapist, who basically is just like, I have no time to ever work on the business. She has built a business where it's just filled all client time. And so what that means is you're not actually working as a business owner, right? As somebody who is leading your business. And that is what is like the key kind of identity piece that people need to shift into is, I'm not just a therapist. I'm not just an Ayurvedic practitioner. I am a business owner. Like I own a company. If you have a business, you own a company. And that requires that you lead the company. And that starts with establishing what is my schedule, right? And what follows suit though, is when you shift from that, I call it a freelancer mindset, the old way, the way of like, you know, freelancers kind of almost think of themselves as, well, I'm hiring myself out to other people, right? So it's like, they actually think like, well, I'm working for the client. I mean, that's not necessarily conscious, but when you say something like to the client, well, when are you available? That's basically you saying, I work for you. When are you available? And that's not what this is. Like, you are this expert there to really help somebody. And you are the one that's leading it. You should be the one leading it, right? And so shifting out of that freelancer mindset into understanding that you are that leader of your business and that your clients want a leader and guide, you know, in their health.
Yeah, two things I would say to that brings Andrea into the picture is, first off, Andrea, I think you might be on almost 8 years with DeAnna Essentials, DeAnna Center. And she is literally, I'm going to give you so many props that I don't even know if you know how much I respect or love this about you. She is literally, of so many employees I've had, the one who holds her schedule. When her day is up, it's up. You know, maybe there's an emergency once in a while, but like, she comes in when she's coming in, she leaves when she leaves, she comes to work, she goes home. You know, amazing boundaries. And, you know, it's very different than, especially if anybody out there has someone working for them, you forget that the employee really wants to please you. So, you know, they will just say, sure, I'll stay till 7. And then the owner gets used to being like, great, I can ask for whatever I want. And then they end up not happy in their job because it overextended beyond what's natural and healthy. And Andrea's been incredibly good at that, at being able to just say, this is when I work. I don't work weekends. Boom. That's it. And, you know, and then I'd say to someone else, well, she doesn't work weekends. We'll have to wait till Monday for that. And somebody would be like, well, what do you mean? We got to know the answer. And I'm like, it's not an emergency. We will ask her on Monday. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like been powerful to see that. And then now Andrea is a new freelancer. She just started her own. So she no longer is my employee, and she doesn't just work for me. She works for whoever she wants to. Yay for growth, Andrea. And that just makes me even happier. But this is good advice for you. just in the way of like, okay, you still get to have those same boundaries you had as an employee. And now you have to hold them on your own as a just business owner. So she is for hire, everybody, just so you know. If you need someone to rock out a website or do some marketing strategy for you, she could be your girl.
Oh, thank you.
You want to tell everyone where to find you?
Wow. Well, so far I don't have
You have an email.
a shingle hung out on the interwebs, oddly, but you can always email me at amfmakes@gmail.com, and I'll poke that into the description. Thank you.
Yeah, because how nice for you to be able to pick and choose who you want to work with, and where do you get to be creative?
Yeah.
And what's going to be worth it for your time. And that's a big part of it, right, Joanna? Isn't it kind of a big part of it is like you actually get to say yes or no?
Oh man, that no part is so important.
Yes.
Again, shifting from like freelancer mindset to I lead my business, I own a business, I am the leader of this, is actually understanding, no, I don't need to serve everyone that comes along. And in fact, if you do serve everyone that comes along, you are bound to actually be miserable in some ways. And it is simply less successful for your business. Like if you take everyone, you don't find who your people are. And the opposite approach, where you figure out who your people are, and then you call them in and you work exclusively with them. That's how you build a thriving business. It really is, because you build your whole business around those people. You build your offers around them. You build your whole sales process. You build all your marketing to talk to them. And so you want to make sure you choose carefully who those people are, right? And they should be people that you particularly love and that light you up and that have exactly the problems that are so easy for you to solve, that you just knock it out of the park. That's kind of the combo you're going for. The people you love and light you up, and who have the problems that, boom, I have the solution for this. You want 100% success stories is what I think of. Right. And when you take on anybody that shows up, which is how new business owners, new practitioners, what they usually do, because it's counterintuitive to turn anyone away. Right. It's like, in the beginning, you really do have to get your feet wet and you have to make the mistakes, and you have to discover who's challenging it for whatever reason, whether it's personality or the problems they have. You have to find that. But once you've worked with enough people to see, these clients, I tell my clients, I say, make a list of the 3 best clients you ever had and the 3 worst clients you ever had. Right. And just make that list. Boom. And then describe why. Why were these 3 people the best clients? Why were these 3 people the worst clients? There's always really clear patterns there. So that's a starting point for starting to see, like, who are my yes people? Who are my no people? And then you want to basically form your business around the yes people, and you want to have ways to repel the no people and filter them out and, kindly refer them elsewhere if they do show up asking to work with you.
I also notice with a lot of my students becoming practitioners, and that's really your demographics, like you have a really strong focus, even prepping today, you were really distinct, like I work with wellness practitioners, and so you were really holding down your demographics and who are your people. And that's a really important piece. But sometimes a practitioner will come to me and they're like, okay, I'm going to do my trifold. Will you look at it? Pricing. And then they'll say, well, you do donation. So like, I have to figure out how to do donation, or like you work with all people and your demographics is all people, which is just its own marketing concept. Really, it's my truth, but it's still my marketing concept. And somebody will say, so I guess I have to figure that out too. And I'll say, now, wait a minute. All people are important. So, and there's like millions and millions and millions of people out there. So like, you just got to say, who do you really want to work with, which is what you're speaking to. And I remember being on the train, this person might even be here, I won't say their name, but we were on the train in India on one of my Indian tours, and we started talking about her business when she got home and business development. And I was just like, you know what? You could work with the stars. You could be working with actresses and actors and people with just millions and millions of dollars. And she lit up and she was like, oh, I think those are my people. And it just matched who she is. I like who she is. And she's like, but I can't do that as a health practitioner. And I was like, you think that you can't be a health practitioner in any demographics? Like, that's more how you present. That's more who you are. I think those people are actually your natural clientele. Why would you not market to that clientele? And she's like, yeah, but they don't need, and I go, wait, are you thinking that only people with no money need help? Because like, wait a minute, let's think about that. Everybody can have a health crisis. Everybody's trying to prevent and stay alive. Everybody wants a massage. Some people are going to want to work with the people who need it by donation. And that's a whole nother demographics. And other people are going to have all the money in the world and they're going to want you 3 times a week because they have the money to do so. So how do you play that out? And I remember that conversation, and sure enough, what is she doing? She is working it. She's working with people, higher in and finances and just has these people. She's like, I can't believe it. They just put this money out like it's nothing. And I'm like, and that's why your price is too low because you also could be charging more for the demographics that you're working with, and that's not for everyone, but I'm bringing that up because health practitioners seem to think they have to give it away. And in actuality, you still get to strategically plan your business and decide who you want to work with. So just because, I do a 50-50, I do donation and free, and I do, the other half are people with money of all different demographics. But I do think it leans to the question, and I'm just curious what you would say about this, because I try to crack that, break that down all the time with my students, that since they're in health, they don't get to make a lot of money.
Yeah, I got a lot to say about it.
Oh, I figured you would.
First thing, that's slightly unrelated, but you mentioned it and I want to talk about it. This common thing of like your students looking at you and seeing your business as the model that they're trying to emulate. And it's a mistake. It happens to me too. And what it is that we have students who are looking at us when you're 30 years in, you're 30 years of establishment. You're at a totally, totally different phase of business than I would imagine any of your students are. Yes. Right. And so phase of business, stage of business totally matters here. And so the thing is that you have, I don't actually know your whole model, but just based on what you just said, you have what I call a social impact business model where, and this is what, let's see, how can I want to break this down. What I teach is that you need to be making enough money for your business needs to be making enough money to sustain itself and for you to be making a good living before you're offering services that are free or low cost. You have to have a business with cash flow that can provide that. And so a social impact business model is one where the business model ensures that you have the extra in order to offer, for example, scholarship. I have a scholarship model, right? And that has particular criteria, but your business has to be able to fund that. Otherwise, you're just giving away your time and money. And if you're struggling, what the heck is the point? That's not like you're not being a model yourself, right? And if you're not able to sustain yourself financially, when you're not able to sustain yourself financially, you're less healthy, period, right? There's all that struggle. So it's people want to jump ahead and, they see what you're doing and they think that's what they're supposed to have. And you need to start step by step and you need to build a profitable and sustainable business. That should be number one. Number one is the cash flow coming in to provide for the business. And part of that is your salary. So that's one thing I want to say, is that a lot of people think that what you get paid in your business is what's left over after you've paid, the business expenses. I totally disagree and try to flip that all the time. Your salary really is like one of the business expenses. Your salary needs to be part of that, right? And so when I say profitable for a business, I'm talking about all the business expenses are paid, your salary is paid, any salaries of people who work for you, et cetera. And then the profit is what's left over after that. And so you can create a model where, for example, the profit is what goes into your scholarship fund, or the profit is what goes into, you just call it a scholarship fund, and allowing for sliding scale. So you have to have that. Now, the issue of people giving away there's a whole thing there that I would say that I don't necessarily understand myself, but for sure it's like this broke mindset. It's pretty rough. I mean, I see it all the time, just like you do. And the fact is that, practitioners can't fathom themselves often paying for paying themselves for what, for example, if they come to me and we do a pricing exercise and I say, here's based on, so the way I help people price their services is not like, there's no guessing to it whatsoever. I use a calculator and it's like, here's these expenses, here's your salary requirements, boom, 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 the hours you're going to work, and then you end up with what I call a base hourly rate. Your base hourly rate is not something that anybody ever sees. It's what you use to design your programs and packages. And so the programs and packages, for example, for a wellness practitioner, you might end up with, so we go through a whole process where they design their programs and packages based on those ideal people that they love to work with and who have the problems they want to solve. But let's say it ends up being something like a 3-month, this 3-month program, this 3-month package. And let's say it's priced around, $3,500. And the practitioner goes, what? I would never pay that. And that's where I'd say part of the problem is if you wouldn't pay it, that there's a problem there, right? Like, do you not invest in yourself? Like it does start with ourselves, investing in ourselves, whether it's our health, whether it's our business development, whatever it is in our lives. When there are things we want, we have to invest, whether it's time, money, energy, or all three. We have to invest ourselves to get that, right? And so there is something about the kind of afraid to charge money that is also afraid to spend money on ourselves. That to me, that's a piece of it, is try investing in yourself and see what the returns are, right? See how amazing it is and see what the returns are to invest in yourself. And that'll give you a sense of how important it is for people in general to invest in themselves. And that's what they're doing when they're paying you for services. They're not investing in you. Yes, I'm paying you, DeAnna, for this help, but I'm not investing in you. I'm investing in my health.
Right.
That's an investment in me.
That's right.
Right. It's the same when people pay me for business development work. They're not investing in me. They're investing in themselves for their businesses, And
you have to put some money in to be able to get the fruit out.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to, be willing to put some money towards your own health, or put some money towards your own business development. And I find, and I'm curious what you have to say about this, is a lot of people try to do that on pure trade. Now, I do trade, but I have very specific parameters around trade because I have learned, boy, have I learned some great mistakes, some great lessons around trade. So I'm just curious, a lot of people with startup businesses will go right into that. Well, I'm just going to trade everything out. And I'm just curious what you have to say about that.
I just think it's part of that kind of, here we are, you're not currently in West County, but it's like part of the vibe, right? Here's the thing. I'm not a fan of capitalism, but I live in a capitalist society right now. And I don't like this, but the fact is that we live in this culture right now anyway, that requires money for housing, for healthcare, for food, these things that I think that should be basic human rights that are just there for us are things that we actually need money to pay for. And so I understand the inclination to wanting an alternative economy. Like I love it. But if you're not making enough money to provide for your needs, then there's an issue, right? So again, it's kind of back to that cash flow thing. Like if you have a business that is it's sustaining itself and providing everything for you that you need, you're in a position to start giving free services, discounted services, sliding scale services, right? And trade. And so I'm not opposed to trade by any means. It's just that watch it, like most people, if like you're saying, if they start out their practice and they're going all trade, it's part of this like fear of making money thing, and that's only somebody can self-check themselves if that's what's really going on. Are you afraid of making money? And I don't know. I wish I had like the answer to it, but like I said, I'm pretty clear. I honestly, I would love to see the capitalist system fall. I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. And so I know that that's what I believe. And I know that I'm working towards an alternative, world and culture, I think, in the work that I do. But right now, money is what I need to support my kids, to have this house to live in, right? To eat the food that I want to eat. And that's the thing, is that the food that I want to eat costs more than cheaper food. And so I want to make that money because that's what I'm doing. Right. And I also am helping other people make more money, but there has to be some level of acknowledgement of that's what we're living in. And like, and kind of maybe in some ways take the power of money away that you might have it in your head. It's just this currency that we use right now to get the things we need and want. But people, we all have money issues. That's for sure. We all have different money stories. And a lot of those stories involve things around wealth being bad. And yet I've come to a place where I have recognized, and I absolutely grew up with those stories. I'll say that. But I've come to a place where I recognize like wealth and money allow me to do so much good in the world. Besides, I've been talking about providing for myself, but what it allows me to do, if I make more money than I need for the lifestyle and supporting my family that I want, I can do so much awesome stuff with that. I do. I mean, a portion of my revenue, a percentage of my revenue already goes out to organizations that I support. And that's the kind of stuff you get to do when you are making extra money, which I think should be a goal. It's not about just getting by. When you make extra, you get to help other people. So money stuff. I mentioned
when you give money to a lot of those organizations or nonprofits, not only does it feel good, and then you do get to do good with your money, but those are tax write-offs. So you get that money back anyway. So, people forget, to really track, what's taxable and what's not taxable, and you think that $50 a month or even $10 a month is like, oh, what's the difference? But it actually is a very big difference. My $99 a month to KPFA that I have been doing forever. I don't even know how many years I have been doing that.
Yeah.
All of that, I actually get back as tax write-off anyway, but I'm also then promoting and supporting the kind of news that I want in the world. And it's important to me.
Yeah. And that's impacting other people.
If I don't make money, I can't do that.
Right. Right. Yeah. The ripple effect. So, it's a big one. It's a big one for sure. I'm not the expert around the money stuff, but it's something I know. What my clients have said is that the exercise I do with them around the calculator, because it's so objective and it's not about It's not about like some guessing game of how much will people pay or how much are other people charging or any of that. It is just the straight math of how much does your business need to be sustainable and profitable. A lot of times that kind of wakes people up like, oh, because it's so objective, and instead we have, all these money stories that have all this stuff and emotion attached to them. And this is kind of unemotional. Like, this is what you need to charge.
That's right.
Yeah,
to sustain yourself and to sustain your business so that you're actually available to people long term. Because it's another thing I talk about is like, I'm a super long-term practitioner. Like I got that 33 years on me, but I've got people especially in the pandemic. I mean, the people that I've still been actively seeing, are the people who are kind of like, DeAnna, I need you. I've been seeing you. You're my practitioner for 20 years.
Yeah.
I see people that I've seen for literally a couple of weeks ago. I saw a client I've been seeing for 28 years who I started cutting their hair in San Francisco when I was a cosmetologist. You know what I mean? And then I started saying, can I take your pulse while I do your haircut? Can I read your tongue? Look at this line on your face. And like, I was practicing Ayurveda, but I was doing hair and makeup in the city. And I was like, how am I ever going to transition? And I was like, well, I've got all these people who come to me already for hair advice, skin advice. Why not just grab their wrist? So sometimes you got to know when to do the freebies. If you're a brand new practitioner, you do have to, I tell the massage therapists who study with me, I'm like, you got to do that free pulse reading for 15 minutes. You got to have them come 15 minutes early and do that free pulse reading so that you get versed in pulse so that you can then start charging for pulse. So there's also those little training wheels, but I turned
for sure
hair clientele and my osteology, clientele into my Ayurvedic and bodywork clientele.
Yeah.
We can transition. There's creative ways to transition. If you're listening to this and you're wanting to change careers into a health, direction, don't play any games with yourself that like, I'm an accountant. How will I ever, become a health practitioner? It's like, you could give some health advice for anyone who wants it as an accountant. And then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, that was good advice. Can you do a consult? And then all of a sudden you're like, and this is what I charge. And they go to you to find out exactly what they should charge. But I am going to back up and say one more thing about this trade concept that I learned. If I can give a little advice to everybody too, is, I do trade, so I'm not against it, but it's complicated because people don't follow through or take it as serious. So the whole key to trade is to set it up in the same exact business way as anything else. So I always say a contract is a contract is a contract, and there should be contracts for everything you do beyond a conversation. And the deeper a conversation goes, the more you should start writing it down, because if you're starting to talk about, working with somebody, or you're starting to talk about a strategic plan, you need to be taking notes, and those notes over time, if you keep talking, they become the contract, and you fill in the gaps of that contract according to what hasn't been discussed. But, it's a really important, same thing with scholarships, things have shifted in the last couple of years, but about $40,000 a year in scholarships I did, because I had so much money being made off my clinical course that's how much I could scholarship.
Yep.
And it took years and years to build up to that much scholarship, so it's not like I just said, 40,000 and I'll make this much, so I'll do this. No, the more I made, the more scholarships available. I didn't used to have any scholarships at all because I wasn't making enough.
I just love that you just said that. The more I made, the more scholarships available. So it's just so clear that it's like you established the business in order, you had to make that money in order to provide that. So important. And also you're talking about the boundaries, which is just so key. Sliding scale is totally different than a scholarship to me. Sliding scale is putting the choice in the hands of the client. And that's where people's money stuff comes up. It's crazy how people with different amounts of money see their money. There are people with what I might think of as plenty of money, who perceive themselves as not having enough and would choose to pay a lower amount. It's amazing. Or if it's something they don't value that much, they're going to pay a lower amount. So sliding scale is so totally subjective, and you're basically leaving it to the client to play out their own money stories and their own value stories, their own even self-worth stories. Do you know what I mean? Like in that, versus something like a scholarship model or anything where you're saying you have really clear boundaries and a really clear container around this. That's what most people are missing, right? It's just completely like, oh, sure, I'll give them a discount. Or if somebody asks, right, or whatever, or people who don't know how to actually just sell and charge for their services will start to back off. I mean, I've heard about people offering a discount when it wasn't even asked for. Like, oh, I'll give you 20% off or something, just because they're so nervous themselves about doing it. But having those clear containers, as you're saying, is just so key. So that's a totally successful model. Yeah.
And I don't do sliding scale. I've done it many times through my years. And I pretty much stopped probably about 15. I did it for probably the first 15 years. But I found that, I was like, wait a minute, now I'm feeling resentful because this person who just told me they inherited $400,000 just gave me the $70 instead of the $100. And I'm like, wait a minute, like the sliding scale was supposed to be so that people without money would pay less, so that people with money would pay more. But exactly. You can't, and then you can't say anything and you can't do anything. And I just found that I was always up against this, like, I know a lot about these people's, backgrounds because of the work I do and the intimacy of my work. And it just wasn't adding up. And then you had the people with no money who felt guilty, so they paid the top.
Exactly. Right. That's exactly what I mean.
You have no money.
Totally.
Like, pay the less.
Yeah.
So it didn't balance. And, if somebody once to me said, well, then that balances out. And I was like, but it doesn't really feel clean. No, like sliding scale never felt clean to me. And that's just me. I'm in charge of my business. I get to decide how I want to do it, but it just didn't feel clean, Yeah. And there's so much psychology around money. Like I also used to have all my clinics used to be free, but I wasn't seeing a lot of follow through, and I wasn't seeing people necessarily come back and engage and like grow. And as a practitioner, I'm totally invested in people growing with what I'm teaching them. I'm not like, do whatever you want with it. You paid me. I have no desire to just make money. I'm totally about people's goals. Mm-hmm. I'm like, how many less symptoms do you? Oh, no less symptoms. Oh, let's look. How can I help you best get into this? Did I make these too complicated? Like, can we make this simplified? Like, I want people to change and grow and feel better, or I'm just not even interested. That's just me. But I noticed when I was doing free, I just wasn't seeing that, but I could see it in my paid clientele. So I had to just sit. And then I was talking to a client one day, and she goes, free is a setup. Nobody has to do anything when it's free. So they're not doing their self-care. They're not owning that paperwork you're giving them. It's just paperwork that was free. What if you did by donation? They can give anything they want. I did a suggested 40, and there's two things about that donation, but it was like literally within months, I could see people were rebooking. They were bringing back their paperwork. They had their checklists. They were doing their things. They had less. I was like, I cannot believe that I was giving it away, which meant don't do it. I could not believe that. It was just like, wow. And it shifted everything. And still, again, they get to put however much money they want in that envelope. It could be a penny, and it doesn't matter because it's by donation. And then some people, how many times, Andrea, did someone slap down $500 for the cause? And they're like, please I want you to keep running this clinic. I'm giving you $500. I just came here to meet you and I wanted it to be cheap, so I didn't waste any money, So the other thing about running like donation, that's another thing to schedule. So if you are in the help, I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm a super big advocate about making yourself available, whether it's a free class you're teaching or by donation class you're teaching, or whether it's a by donation like 3 hours a month and it's a clinic, where it's an open forum where you're just like, ask me questions, I'll answer them. I built my entire everything, my whole clientele on accessibility. I made myself accessible. I did free classes, donation classes. I mean, I've taught in a burger joint in the middle of San Jose because it was where my dad always went, and he kept telling him about his daughter. And the whole family was like, we want to know this person. We want her to help us. And he was like, would you go? And I was like, well, how many are there? And he's like, oh, he has about 20 employees. I was like, sure, I'll go talk. They can all kick down a little donation. I ended up making $400 in 2 hours off 10 people, and they all became my clients. Like, you know what I mean? And so how do you make sure, and you don't have to go and work at a burger joint as a healthcare practitioner. I'm just saying I'm about all people. So I'll teach in a church if there's a group of people who want me to talk. I'll go anywhere as long as they are truly wanting my advice and I'm safe in that environment. I'm down, especially if someone's gonna, pay me, because I've got get me 20 people, paid for this weekend, I'll come, And so I just think making yourself available, if you're wanting to be a health practitioner, you have to keep in mind that your menu of services isn't just going to speak for itself. People have to see things 27 times before they make a move in marketing. 27 times is the average. You have to see something before somebody makes a move to say yes or ends up saying no, one or the other. So you got to put yourself out there, and you can still do it by donation. But I do think that, practitioners need to be able to prove themselves a little bit more.
Yeah.
I just think.
Yeah.
They have to be speakers. If you're going to do one-on-one, you've got to be a speaker. Otherwise, you're going to get all freako when you're with the one-on-one and it's awkward, and no, they're not going to come back. You got to get comfortable with speaking.
Mm. Yeah, what you ended up using the word marketing, and as you were talking about what you were doing, that's what in my mind. So it's a really nice frame for people to see that this is not what you're talking about. To me, is excellent marketing. It's not about giving away your services. Like you went to, the burger joint and did some kind of class or workshop, right? And you said you got clients out of that. That's how you want to see you can be giving really great free offers and free workshops, free classes, free Ask Me Anything. I have a monthly practitioners business roundtable that's free for people to just come and ask questions. And a lot of times I'll have like a 10-minute mini lesson to start, and then they can ask any questions they want. Right. So, but you want to think of that as a form of marketing that's how you're getting leads. That's how you're growing your audience. That's how you're growing your authority, right? Showing what you know in the field. And you want a pathway after that for somebody to become a client. I'll just throw in that what I teach my clients to do is the sales process that my clients use is a consultation. And the consultation itself is different. When you're talking about a consult, you're talking about a very specific Ayurvedic process. The consultation, as I talk about it, would be like a clarity call, discovery session, or it can involve an assessment. It does involve an assessment, but it is actually free because it's not the services themselves. It's an assessment and then basically a recommendation for what that person needs to get to their goals. And then that's the enrollment process, because then it's very clear to them what you offer, and they can decide to, oh, okay, this is what I need. If they want to do that with you, it's right there for them. So anyway, I love the talking at the burger joint, and that's just a great model. Just for anybody that's watching this who actually doesn't know what to do for marketing and is looking for more clients, that's a great model, is to be offering workshops, classes, and that that can be online. It's so easy these days, right? The other thing I want to point out that you said, DeAnna, that for anybody watching that is looking to grow their client base, which I imagine some people watching this want clients, and then maybe some people maybe are kind of slammed. Those are two different problems that are both what I work with people around. But for folks really looking for more clients and more leads, you mentioned how you were a cosmetologist, right? But you were learning these new skills and starting to apply them. So two things to pull out of that. One is that your own personal and professional network, that is how you start any new venture.
Yes.
You already know a bunch of people, and they may know you in a totally different capacity, and still those people know you. And so that is where you start. You tap your personal and professional network. And it's as easy as going to, it's honestly how I started this business. I just went to like my phone and my contacts list. I started writing down names of people who I might reach out to. I went to my Facebook friends list because I'm active on Facebook. That's like my social media platform. I went to LinkedIn. And this is not everybody. I'm choosing the people that already like I'm connected to, that I already know, that already know me and hopefully like me and trust me, right? And let them know what you're doing. Like you can launch a business that way, is let them know what you're doing. But the key here is, and this is part of your story too, DeAnna, is that when you are to call out to people, you don't tell them it's not about you. You're not like, hey, I now do this kind of work, right? Here's this new stuff that I learned that you've never heard of, and maybe you want it. Like, that's not going to do anything for them. They're going, what, pulse reading? Like, why the heck do I want a pulse reading? Like, that means nothing. Right? And so what you want to be doing is talking to people about their pains and problems and goals and desires that your work can help them with. What pains and problems can the work that you do help them solve? What goals and desires can the work that you do help them get to? That's what you're talking about. And in many respects, it doesn't matter what the modalities you use are at all. People are only going to be interested in that once they're interested at all. And then you can talk to them further. But you don't lead with, I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner now, right? You lead with, hey, I can help people like this with these problems. And I'm offering a, free class, a free workshop, right? Coming up on this day. And here's a Zoom link. Like, it can be that simple, right? And then you want to be putting together some kind of class or workshop that shows who you are. Just like you're saying, getting out there shows who you are. It's not about free services. It's about laying out for people tools and frameworks that will shift their understanding of their pains and problems and goals and desires and how to reach them, even if you just give like 3 like belief shifting nuggets, that's actually going to be more valuable than giving them actions, because it's the actions they're going to have trouble carrying through. And as a practitioner, that's your job, is to help them with those actions. Giving them the actions is not super valuable. Like, go do this every day. Like, you could drop that in, but people usually won't follow through on their own, right? So instead, to give them shifts in their understanding of what's going on is going to be much more empowering. And then your invitation is, talk with me about your specific situation and how you need to carry that out, right? And that's your invitation to a consultation, which would be a sales process where you enroll people in your services.
Andrea, I'll be interested to see if there's any questions, but I'm going to add just one little tiny, and then we'll see if there's anybody out there that you want to tell us about. That assessment, let me tell you something. So you're going to have learning curves. In everything we're talking about, there are learning curves. And I love talking about my own learning curves, because then it makes it real. When I do free assessment, say it's 15 minutes, that is one of the hardest things for me to do ever. Because I do like 90, 2-hour, 3-hour, 3-day sessions. So for me, I'm like, 15 minutes and don't give advice. Like, I had to really dial that in. And I'm just giving everybody that advice, is like, you don't want to give it away. if you're really doing like a 15-minute assessment, you want to maybe write down bullet points on like, hey, this is how I want to activate the client. I want to explain what it is that I have to offer the client. So I'm explaining what I can offer, but I'm not giving the advice to what they would do yet. And I'm putting them in action. So it's like, I want to see if I can inspire somebody, but I don't really want to get them fully started yet. And I have made this mistake so much through the years. Maybe it's easier for some other people, but I just love giving advice. And so it's a little bit challenging. So it just brings up the thing is like any one of these things might be really easy for you out there. And other things are going to have their walls or their challenges. And the idea in business is to meet the challenge. So I had to do 3 bullet points for 15 minutes. I can't have more than 3 bullet points, and they're not a name of a plant. They're not the food remedy list. I'm not like, stick out your tongue. That's what I'm going to do in the consult. So you're just going to have to kind of sometimes lay that out so that you meet your weaknesses. So that was definitely and has been one of my weaknesses. And you want to be honest with yourself about your strengths and weaknesses. It's a very important part of growing a business, is like, what can I do and what can I not do? And then that's another reason why you're going to need money, because there's going to be things you're not good at. You're going to have to pay someone else to do them. Otherwise, you're wasting time and you're wasting money trying to do them yourself. It's better just to make enough money to pay someone to do it. Mm-hmm. And that takes us back to Andrea.
I have to tell you, this talk is so inspiring. I'm excited for the folks who are watching. And I want to give a little shout out to folks that are here. Martha is here from Austin. And Martha is actually a recipient of that abundance, DeAnna, that you have worked to draw in, because she was given a scholarship to attend My Body Mapping, and she's very grateful for that. And we're so glad that we were able to give that to you, Martha. And then we've got Amy Villa, who's here, and she does have a question. So if we have time to tap in.
Please.
Yeah, great. So she is coming from Northern California, Sacramento area, and she asks what you recommend for keeping in balance when moving to a tropical climate like Hawaii. So it's a big climate shift there.
Okay. Well, first off, don't forget to eat the local food, not the spam. That's quite the local food in Hawaii, but all the fruits and vegetables that are there, because the food that grows in a region is exactly how you're going to acclimate to the region. So those mangoes and the enzymes in those mangoes, the nourishment and the quality of fats you're going to get from the avocados. There's also olena throughout Hawaii, which is called turmeric mango. It's actually a different type of turmeric than the one we know from India or all of Asia. It's a much milder turmeric, but you're going to usually find that olena almost at the base of any avocado tree, the bananas. So really, honestly, the things that grow in the tropics, when you move any region, the things that are there is probably your smartest way to acclimate, is to stay within the season. So what seasonal foods, when did you move? What season is it? And then what are the local foods that grow there? And that is a very big part of it. But you came from dry Northern California over into very moist, tropics. And you went from kind of hot and cold to pretty much hot year round. So you have to think about, and that's where that olena and those avocados come in, because they're alkaline and they're cooling. And that turmeric is very specific. And burdock grows really well in Hawaii too. But those are specific for keeping the liver churning and keeping your lymph moving, so that the tropical heat doesn't get up under your skin and start pressurizing and getting you like where you feel like, oh my gosh, it's so moist here, I can't get out of my skin. And that just means you need lymphatic flow so that you keep your blood flowing, you keep your liver moving, you keep your spleen immune organ moving. And that way you're not going to feel like you have to figure out how to beat the heat. In fact, that would be the way to do it. So if you're in a damp, hot tropics, you're going to need those very cooling. You're going to need more high fat. And of course you want that to be healthy fat. The other one you got in Hawaii is coconut. So you need the avocado, the coconut, and you need some of those, lymphatic drainage techniques. The other thing I always say is like, hey, if you're going to be near sand, it makes an incredible scrub, and it's free. So you can go buy a scrub. You can get some beautiful salt straight from Hawaii, that alea, or I might not be saying that right, but that beautiful lava salt they have. But those things are available for a salt scrub, but you could go right to the ocean. You could take sand, you could scrub until you're all pink, which moves the lymph and blood, and then go and float yourself in that water. And when we're in water and we're floating is actually when we have our innate blood pressure. It balances and regulates the blood pressure. And that's why high blood pressure does so good with swimming. And people do get more high blood pressure in the tropics. Actually, there's more high and more low, because low is dehydrated and it's too hot and you're not getting enough water, and it'll drop out the blood pressure. And then there's a lot of high blood pressure from that pressurized heat, which makes heat rise, and that makes the blood boil. And that's what high blood pressure is. So getting in water and just floating and swimming, and then floating and swimming, and really making sure you're moving that lymph is a great way to do it. I know I always talk about lymph, but how can I not? We all have one. It's the tissue that feeds all the rest of the tissues in the body. And it's the main way you're going to get your temperature regulated. So if you're too cold, you need to move your lymph. If you're too hot, you need to move your lymph. But seasonal, local growing food is the smartest way to acclimate. And let's not forget, my other topic I adore is electrolytes. And here you are at the ocean, where chloride and sodium of the wave, salty water, hits the sand, the earth, potassium, magnesium. And when those two, water and earth, meet, it makes the only edible crystal in the whole world. And that is salt, and that's our electrolytes. So don't forget to, really think about how much electrolyte balance is going to balance your blood. And that's what makes sure you don't get listless in the tropics, which basically means your blood pressure is not regulated from the amount of heat and moisture pressure. And that's why people get exhausted when they go to the tropics. They're like, am I on vacation and I'm this tired or what? And I always say, well, it changes your blood pressure, that hot, wet environment. So you got to keep things cycling more. But that's why you spend so much time in the water. And that's why we're water driven when we're in the tropics too, because it does that regulating for us. Yeah, but great shout out for mangoes. Those enzymes are really smart when you're trying to acclimate to a new environment. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I do have another question. And this question comes from Simone, who is a fantastic practitioner in her own right. She has been a student of DeAnna's, and she is asking a very in the trenches question about her practice. And she's wondering how to handle last minute cancellations. And what she means by that is that with COVID, she's had a lot of cancellations from reactions to the shot, or someone's kids are exposed, or other things. She says she's had more cancellations than ever without any remorse on the client's part. She charges $40 for a last minute cancellation, or says they can reschedule within the week for no cost, which usually works. But what she's hearing is that they had no way to know, and therefore feel fully justified to have that last minute cancellation. So it sounds like there's this sort of struggle of, how do I enforce my own boundaries on this one? So what do you two have to say about that?
Joanna, I think you have something to say.
Oh, I was going to let you start, but it's interesting. This sounds like it's very particular to the COVID times we're in right now. When she's saying it's really right now, and these examples she gave. So I will start with what my answer to that usually is when it's not specific to COVID, which is I teach a model. I'll just explain it. I teach practitioners how to build programs and packages for their clients instead of selling session by session. I believe that serves the clients better. You're taking them on a journey. You're identifying their pains and problems and goals and desires and designing this journey for them to go on to help them get to the results. DeAnna, you talked about like, you're in this to get results, right? And for them to get their goals. And so am I. And that's what I teach practitioners how to do, is serve their clients more deeply. So rather than that session by session approach, they're laying out that path from the beginning, and the client is enrolling and investing in themselves to take that journey. What happens when you do that is you set up your payments, everything is done so that they're enrolled in the journey. So the sessions are there, the practitioner is paid no matter what, whether the session happens on time or not. And what that generally does is eliminates cancellations, except in true cases of actual, like what we're talking about here. Like if somebody's been exposed and you don't want them in your office, then that's what's got to happen, right? But you can eliminate cancellations pretty much when you do a programmatic approach rather than a session by session approach. As for this, I'm curious what you have to say, DeAnna. I mean, it sounds to me like this is so particular to this time period that we're in right now, that those policies and boundaries you have around that, you get to decide, what are they? This is this thing happening right now. So how am I going to deal with this while this is going on? And I would say create a policy around that for yourself, right? And I'm not sure. It's so particular to now. I'm not sure what else to say about that.
Question, Simone, I love you. And I'll answer the question too, but I think those packages are really good. And actually, Simone is somebody who's really good at those packages. So I wonder if she's thought about using that model, in this situation, or even just that could be a reason why do more packages right now, is just to make sure you are covered. So this is what I've been doing, because I've had this issue too. So first off, we don't want to forget the COVID test, the home kit test. So what happens is somebody contacts me and says, hey, I feel fine, but so-and-so had an exposure, but I'm good. I've been saying, will you please go get a COVID test? And if you're negative, then I'm still feeling confident. And the one thing I have though, that some people don't have, is like, I know what COVID and multiple variants, because I have made sure I know what that feels like on the pulse. And so I have a little bit of an advantage in the way that, like, I check people's pulses outside, before they enter my space. And I make sure their inflammatory markers are okay. There's not too much inflammation showing up on immunity. Simone has this in her pocket too. She knows how to do this also. It's what she does also, and is very good at. So being able to, like, could you get a test, and I want to know you're negative? And, because a test, you get 2 tests for $24. It's not like the end of the world, and it is one of those things that I think, and like, this could be a whole nother conversation. Do the tests work? Do they not? Blah, blah, blah. It's security. I need some security if somebody feels fine and has had no exposure, and has had some exposure, but it's been mild exposure and they feel fine. I want them to do a test before they come see me. And I've had a lot of people, and to be honest, I've been keeping tests on hand, because I've had people even show up and then they're like, oh, I had exposure, but I didn't want to miss my appointment and I didn't want to put you out the money, so I showed up. And then I'm kind of like, and so I'm like, okay, we have our masks on, everything's good. I know how to be safe. Let's go ahead and do your pulse outside, like I do everybody. And I say, hey, by the way, if you're willing to pay for it, I have a COVID test right here. We could just go ahead and you could swab up. And I've done this many times. So I've been keeping COVID tests on hand. And then since it's 24 for 2 tests, I just charge them $12. I don't even make them charge more. I'm just like $12 and we're on the clock because they showed up and that's my time. So I say, I know it's 15 minutes out of your appointment, but you might be able to stay and get your appointment. Otherwise, you're positive and this is an issue for more than just me. And so then I help them just be responsible about like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? I haven't yet had somebody be positive. So I feel lucky for that. But you know, things are very tricky now. So it's not so cut and dry. So I suggest having the test on hand. I suggest maybe even if you have a pre-email that goes out that says, hey, your appointment is in 48 hours, you need to have the disclaimer. So you need to have a disclaimer that like, you can't cancel within 24 hours is full price. So it's not $40. So in my world, 24-hour cancellation is the same as any standard spa all over the world, really, not even just the US. If you cancel within 24 hours, you got to pay for it. And if you no-show, you got to pay for it. So you might want to think about getting their credit card when you book them. You know, you get a credit card when you book them because you don't want to have to be struggling with like, you owe me money now, you have to pay me. So be smart about how you book your appointment is number one, and already have a standard cancellation, you know? And then the other thing that's come up a few times has been where the client said, I don't feel good. I was COVID tested. I'm negative, but I do not feel good. And that's not a good time to be getting massage or exposure. And I like that they're being integrous. So right now, my policy has changed a little in the way that if somebody's like, Dee, I don't feel good, I don't think I should come, what do I do? It's 24 hours, it's 12 hours from now, or it's in 6 hours. And I say, I am so thank you for your integrity in these pandemic times. That's what I call it. Thank you for your integrity. I would love it if you would go ahead and pay that forward, and let's go ahead and schedule you for 2 weeks or more out. So that's what I've been doing. And then I don't charge even $40. I was just like, wow, you don't feel good in these times, and you're like trying to be just really honest about it, and you don't want to expose me. I'm just going to reschedule you, but I do have them pay in advance so that I can stay on my budget, you know, because it's not just, okay, now I've got the day free. Woohoo! That's kind of a weird game to play. You're like, wait a minute, this day was part of my budget. So I need to stay on my budget. So that's what I've been saying is like, do you mind just going ahead and Venmoing me that, you know, payment? And here's some dates for 2 weeks to a month out. And you can decide when you feel like it's safe. And please, will you COVID test next time before you come? So that's kind of what I've been doing, is just honoring those that are being integrous, and just do a reschedule. And things are a little bit wompy right now, but I have them go ahead and pay me for that time. And then they're not out any money, and I'm meeting my budget. And then I just, you know, figure that budget out for 2-3 weeks out in a different way. I can prepare for that. If I know I'm going to do a 2 or 3 hour session, you know, 3 weeks from now, and it's already paid for, I can prepare for that. But what if you're not prepared in that day, you know, or that no show, no help. I'm sorry, no show, no help. It's just the bottom line, you know, someone's got to pay me in full if they don't show up. In that, I'm sorry, but you have to be very honorable. I can hands to heart. I can speak very calmly. I cannot be triggered. It's not personal, but I am going to have to say, if somebody no shows, I'm sorry if even, you know, they had what they see as an emergency or something happened, you know, it just, you can't no show and not call and then have an excuse. It just isn't going to work for me. It works for them, but that doesn't work for me. And this was it's a reciprocal relationship. So I'm just going to have to be, graceful about how I say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I understand things come up in life, but this is one of those things where it changed things for me. And this is a reciprocal relationship. And I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to pay for your session that you didn't show up for. So few different layers in these times, few different layers. And then my concept might change according to how long I've known that client too. I'm going to be really honest. Sometimes I've had a client for a really long time and they had some last minute thing and they're like, DeAnna, I'm freaking out, blah, blah, blah. And I could just be like, no problem. Because I can also put a number on that financially, and honor a long-term relationship and be able to say, whoa, this person has been helping me with my finances and my life for 30 years. So, okay, I can give a little room for those things happen.
If I might interject,
I have to think about the long-term client.
If I might interject there and just come back to a few things that I've said today. One, about identifying who your people are and really calling in the right people and working with the right clients. Those are the kind of relationships you get. And you really can build a business where it's 100% those people. And when your sales process, your enrollment process, and your packaging is such that people are enrolling in this journey with you, it gives you so much more freedom to be generous. When you're talking about, of course, I feel that generosity with somebody where there's clearly they're totally invested in themselves and in their work with me, right? It's been long-term. It's been 30 years. I just want to point out that it can be a goal for every client to be like that. They don't have to have been with you for 30 years, but you can have that depth of relationship really early on when you're enrolling the right people and they're investing in themselves and going on that journey. That's what they're doing. It allows you so much more generosity. And I will also say that when you design your business that way, when you're talking about the no-show, as you described a no-show, that is so appallingly disrespectful to me. When I hear that, I'm like, oh, that happens. That doesn't happen to me. I would just be like,
it's very rare for me too, but
yeah,
it has happened.
That is those are people that you should, somebody who would act in that way. You can figure that out ahead of time and weed people out. It's a reason not to. This is me getting on my soapbox, but I really believe in choosing your clients carefully. I believe in, understanding who they are and choosing them carefully and filtering out the wrong people and calling in the right people and having a sales process that does this. And did I just lose my thought? I mean, I'm just saying the same thing over and over, but there was something new in there, which is that, okay, let's imagine that it's going to come to me right now.
I'll give you a moment, because I think sometimes with those no-shows, and I don't see them as much, but I do see them with my practitioners who are becoming new practitioners. And I'm like, okay, now we have to talk about whether somebody honored your worth. And did you honor your worth when you booked that appointment?
Yes.
So we're back to even verbal contract.
Yes.
So kind of be, hey, I just want to let you know, it's important for you to, did you put that on your calendar? Because it's your responsibility to show up. I'm showing up for you. So I've told people, just if you're a new practitioner, it's important to say, keep in mind to show up, because I'll be showing up for you. Because if you're kind of like, well, I'll try to help, but I'm new, and, or if you're just a very casual booker where you book things kind of casual and you're like, yeah, gotcha. Very good. I'll send you an email. Sometimes if you're too casual or if you're too much of a newbie, people don't give you the same respect. And I'm not saying I dig on this, but it is the truth. And that just means you have to be a little more confident when you book that, and a little bit more present when you book that, and really verbalize, the contract.
You brought up, thank you. You reminded me what it is, which is exactly what you're talking about. A lot of folks schedule clients through like a link, like just go book the session here. Or people think that having on their website, buy these sessions, right? That somehow makes it easier. I think it a lot of times goes back to the money stuff, that people don't want to kind of be face to face and dealing with saying like, this is how much it costs, and actually be in it, doing it. But it is so important. Like, I discourage, when you have people buy off a digital page, you're not getting to vet them in any way, right? You're not getting to create that relationship with them, and you're not getting to make that verbal contract with them. So I really encourage having a conversation with every person. And what you're talking about, the casual booking, that's what you want to avoid, and really make sure, like, is this person in this? And even asking those questions again. So my consultation process, where you were talking about the 15-minute assessment, involves an interview of them. They're not interviewing you. The freelancer mindset would be, oh, I'm going to talk to this client and they're going to ask me questions to decide if they want to work with me. We flip that. And this is you determining, does this person have the pains and problems and goals and desires that I can help them with? And do they have the commitment and the personality, or whatever the other criteria are for a great client for you? You are interviewing them to make sure they're a good fit for you, right? Along with the assessment. And then once that's clear, like, yep, this person I can help, and this is for me, you can lay out for them like what the plan, what you believe the plan for them should be. And if they're not, you kindly say, I don't think this is a great fit, but I know somebody who may be able to help you, right? And you have other folks on hand that you can refer out to.
Yes. I do refer out. I don't take every single client. I do have referrals, for that same reason. I think it's important to be able to say, I want to be able to help 100%. So if I'm not 100% in, or if it doesn't feel like 100% fit, I actually would prefer that they go and find their 100% practitioner. I don't want to have to try to be 150%, or they have to try to pull things out of me if I'm not the right person for them. I'd rather them be able to have the freedom to go find that person. Andrea, any more questions?
Yeah, and I'd love to know whether that landed for Simone, whether she got what she wanted.
Yeah, I believe that was super helpful. She actually had a second question that's in a different realm, really. What she's looking for is some specifics about how to select a credit card company. I suppose that's a merchant account. So if you've got any advice on good ones to work with, or how to figure out what the good one would be.
Okay, well, if you have products you sell and you have, services you sell, you might want to go with something that has a little more savvy things for some inventory and things like that. So, you might want to, and something that is on your website, like Shopify. That's the one we use, and it's definitely something you could grow into. So, it depends on how much of a business you have, according to what merchant service. They're all very similar in pricing, where somebody charges more annually, somebody else charges more percentage per sale. But I have done this research, and it's not like there's somebody who's going to rip you off and there's somebody else giving you this amazing better price. So you want to look for the merchant service that's actually going to serve your needs. And then you can do a little comparison shopping. I'd say the most common one that is the most easy setup and is the most common fees is going to be Square. And Square, you can like do the slider, or you can even do like, it's so simple, even on your phone. If you're someone who also, does, travels like Simone does. She travels and sees people all over the place. So Square would probably be pretty easy, quick, and you don't have to have, certain percentage that you have to meet every month to get the better price. There's like a whole bunch of different ways to look at that. But I would say Square is relatively easy, and it's going to be common with everybody. So that might be the easiest one to go with. And it can even handle growth, so, I grew with Square for quite some time, before switching over to something that I could grow even deeper into, which was then Shopify. So those are the ones I use. I didn't find any good reason to go straight through my bank and the merchant service that my bank had. In fact, it was the higher of fees. So I didn't go, and there's no reason it needs to be direct with your bank. Things get directly deposited from anywhere into your bank. So you don't have to go with the bank, and they do have higher prices in merchant services. I did notice. So, I would say that's probably going to be my answer. There's also Squarespace, and that does inventory along with just, all of your credit card and automation. It doesn't do as much automation. So, depending on whether you want to do that automated or not, that's more where Shopify probably has a little bit of a lead, is if you did want to have people automatically pay. Joanna was saying, is it Joanna or Joanna?
Joanna, but either one, it's fine.
So I just want to make sure I like to get names right. So what Joanna was saying was not the automation, but I think with automation, you can put in a whole bunch of details and comments. So you could very much walk somebody through an automation, being like, this is my cancellation. This is how you prep for your appointment. Hey, this is my email if you want to contact me prior, if you're a new client. So I'm not totally against it. I do half automation and half in person. So my services are in person, and I just do all the emails myself. And then with my remotes and my tongue assessments and my custom blends, those are all automated. So I'm kind of a 50-50, but if somebody's going to kick down some money and do a 3-hour or a 3-day with me, I want to have a little more of a conversation, so I guess that's probably, but Simone, when I know your business already, and I know you're growing in a new location. If anybody is in Mount Shasta, that's where Simone is now, and you should find her, because you will not get a better massage. You will not get a better bodywork session. It's not just a massage. Like, she is so good, and she is incredibly valuable when it is to giving advice. So Simone Oliver, you want to look her up. She's Empowered Ayurveda, if you want to look her up online. And she did just move to Mount Shasta. And she also does Panchakarma retreats in Sebastopol with another one of my students, Tara. So honestly, you should look her up. She's brilliant. But her business is growing. She's asking growing questions, because she has just gone from being already an incredible human to interning and developing. And now she's 5, 6, 7 years in, and very much, wanted. And so she is hitting these really important walls of like, wait a minute, I think I need to be tracking my money and doing some automation. And at the same time, she's asking questions about some of these clients I've had for a long time. And can I really live on $40 when they cancel? So these are good questions for a growing practitioner. And that's really what I'm hearing from Simone, is like, her business is growing and she's needing to step it up a little bit, so hopefully we're helping her do that. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And unfortunately, we're running out of time. I could sit here and listen to this conversation for many more hours for sure. It's been such a treat having you with us, Joanna.
Oh, thank
you.
I
do want to make sure that everybody is aware of some really great stuff. Joanna is graciously offering a free training for any of you business owners out there growing your businesses. It's a training that allows you to learn the client champion formula for getting long-term clients and creating steady income in your wellness practice, which is the foundation of everything. She has a specific web address for that, joannasapir.com/askdanything. I'm going to pop that into the description so you don't have to scurry for a piece of paper just now. And I also want to let you know that we are in the final days of registering for My Body Mapping at a $100 discount. It's an automatic discount that you get at checkout. So right now, until tomorrow is your best time to register for this tremendous class that can help center you in your own self-care, whether you are applying that self-care to your practice or whether you are trying to determine it for your own self. That's really to understanding what your body's telling you. So it's important to nurture yourself and to nurture all the actions that you do. How you do one thing is how you do all things is a phrase that I like to use. And also, if you are wanting to take that next step into becoming a wellness practitioner, we are still offering a whopping $800 off of DeAnna's in-person practitioner foundations class. That's the foundations of Ayurvedic understanding and elemental theory. This is a life-changing class that has changed hundreds and hundreds of lives, to be honest. So, and the other last minute thing I want to tell you about is that coming in the new year, DeAnna is going to be doing a lot more and different instruction. And she's going to have a monthly gathering called Students Unite. And that is the kind of place where you would have more discussions like this, in addition to case studies about what you're encountering and just getting DeAnna's advice, communing with other individuals who are practitioners like you or learning like you. And that's going to be happening on a monthly basis for $35. Really powerful gathering for that. And keep an eye open for a scar tissue webinar in January, on January 9th, and a hormones webinar in February. So lots of really great things are coming up. Please make sure you visit Joanna's website. I know she's got a lot of really amazing retreats and learning opportunities. So much wonderful stuff to offer. So any last minute messages for us?
No, it's just my pleasure to be here. Thank you both for having me.
Well, I look forward to doing more with you, Joanna. I think we should keep up this conscious business development in the wellness realms and what it is to make healthy money while we're helping ourselves be healthy and helping other people be healthier people. Though it really is a beautiful trying that can be achieved. So thank you so much for what you're doing for so many. And I look forward to doing more of these with you so we can help people to build their practices and for all of us to be happier, healthier people.
Awesome. I'd love more collaboration. And thank you too, DeAnna. I mean, you're truly a model in this domain. So thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining. May you have an amazing new year. And may this year really take you to new places. It's hard to sit in the unknown. These are very unknown times, but I have to say, there is something about the unknown that has so much opportunity. I think it's important to, again, take out some of those things from your limbic brain where we store all of our memories. Let some of those old ideas of business and health and wealth move. Put them aside. Make a little fire, put them on a piece of paper, do a little burn, be safe, but do a little burn and remember when you use fire, it's about transforming. It's transformational. So it's a good time to do a burn of all the old things that you don't want to sit with anymore and live by, and start making new pieces of paper and writing down all the things that you actually think are possible. And then once you start looking at what you want and what's possible, then you can start being very creative on how you're going to actualize that goal and that dream. And then Joanna is here to help you do so. And I am here to help you do so. And imagine if you used both of us, how far you would get, because we have different things to offer. If you used both of us once a month, since we offer it, where would you be in 3 months? Where would you be in 6 months? And that might be the very guidance you need, just step by step, to start making the move towards who you really want to be in your business practice. So may you all have a great New Year's.